Hi, and welcome to the X22 Report Spotlight. Today we have a returning guest, Rob Kirby. Rob is the owner and creator of Kirby Analytics. That's kirbyanalytics.com. And I am very happy to have Rob back on the X22 Report Spotlight. Rob, welcome back to the Spotlight.
Pleasure to be with you again, Dave.
Hey, thanks for being here. And let's start off with the Fed. I mean, you were on about a year ago, and at that time, the Fed was saying, okay, in 2019, we're going to be raising the rates, 3 to 4 times. We're going to be tightening. And then all of a sudden, the Fed completely reversed course. They're no longer going to tighten, and they are holding steady with their interest rates. I mean, what is your take on this? Why all of a sudden did they do an about face?
Well, Dave, to begin with, I believe I might have referenced last year that I didn't really believe the Fed would tighten as much as they had then claimed they were going to. And the reason why there is an about face is because the economy, let's just say the American economy and by extension the global economy, is not nearly as strong as was previously reported. And because we are fed a pack of fallacious economics data showing that everything is all in well in our fiat world, and this is a requirement on the part of officialdom to keep us, the great unwashed, maintaining belief in basically in fiat money and in the governance and stewardship of our global economy and global monetary affairs.
So you think that the economy is a lot worse than what is being reported? I mean, Trump is out there. I mean, he's been contradicting the Fed. He's been saying, listen, don't raise rates, don't tighten, you should cut rates. And it seems like the Fed is kind of listening to him and doing what he says. I mean, do you think Trump has influence over the Fed?
How much influence Trump truly has over the Fed, I think, is open for debate. I don't necessarily believe that Trump has the amount of power over the Fed that some people would suggest he does. But I would also say this: a failing economy is extremely dangerous and detrimental to the longevity going forward of the Federal Reserve. And I do believe that in the wake of a slowing global economy, the Fed is going to be very proactive and is going to want to get out in front of a slowdown with additions of liquidity, official additions of liquidity, and reduction in rates to try to breathe life into a very, very overextended mirage of a recovery since the financial crisis of 2007-8.
Now, this central, I call it a central bank economy. This central bank economy wasn't supposed to last this long, right? I mean, we weren't supposed to be going this far out with this type of an economy, with the amount of debt and everything else.
Well, Dave, we know if one wants to reference the work of Chris Martenson and his work in a seminal piece called "The Crash Course," we know that irredeemable fiat currencies with compound interest have a life cycle, and they only last so long. And as fiat money systems mature, and it's irrelevant as to what interest rates are, they reach a point where the growth rate of money inflects and goes vertical. And if money growth is not maintained in a vertical growth vector or pattern, the whole system collapses upon itself. We've been on that vertical growth curve, I would suggest to people, since the financial crisis of 2007-8. And the money that has been created to satisfy this vertical growth, it has been being printed. It's just that it wasn't visible to most people. And the reason it hasn't been visible is because the money that's being created, that Catherine Fitz and Dr. Mark Skidmore refer to as the missing 21 trillion or more. It's being siloed in dark spaces like the Exchange Stabilization Fund. And this money, this massive amount of fraudulently created money, is being mobilized at points to satisfy massive liquidations, which have been occurring in episodic situations over the past number of years. There have been instances where Russia, China, Saudi Arabia, Japan have dumped in a very short space of time massive amounts of U.S. government debt, and it seems that whenever this occurs, the expected or rationally expected outcome of such a dump would be that interest rates, like in the long end in particular of the U.S. government curve, rates would back up. But instead of rates backing up, when these massive liquidations occur, the bonds are swiftly bought and then rates rally. And this, in my view, can only be the result of this massive cache of money that has been siloed in entities like the Exchange Stabilization Fund, where this dark money comes out of the silo and it's used basically to memory hole and take U.S. government, unwanted U.S. government securities out of the marketplace. And very interestingly, there has been anecdotal data reporting that shows that money supply has actually been contracting. Global money supply supposedly has been contracting over the last 2 or 3 years. And in my view, that is a fallacy because money supply hasn't been contracting. But what we have seen is liquidations of U.S. government debt. And the U.S. government debt is being bought, in my view, is being bought with dark money that is not even acknowledged to exist. And as these securities are bought, remember in our fiat system, debt is money. So when the debt is bought with dollars not acknowledged to exist, the debt is then memory holed, and it has the appearance that money supply is contracting, when in fact money supply is growing. But it certainly isn't contracting. It's just that dark dollars are entering the system. And this is why, anecdotally, this is why equity markets continue to rise. This is why military spending continues to rise unabated. This is why, like anecdotally, Dave, everything we see in the world is not the hallmark of contracting money supply. Everything we see on a macro level is that there are too many dollars chasing too few goods. Unless, of course, you look at, say, the price of gold as it's reported on the COMEX or the LBMA, where infinite numbers of paper contracts are sold into the market to keep the price of gold seemingly arrested. And, but then contrast that with what has occurred in the cryptoverse, where you see in the last 5 months, the price of Bitcoin has come close to tripling, while the price of gold has remained moribund and dead in its tracks. Anyway, these facts do not point to there being less money around. They're highly symptomatic of there being too much money, plain and simple.
So who's controlling, is this the central bank that's using the Exchange Stabilization Fund, or is this the Treasury, or who's actually performing the operation to purchase the bonds and everything else and to use these funds?
I'm gonna answer that by saying that in my view anyway, and I think others would share my view, Catherine Austin Fitz speaks about it quite regularly, that America has been the victim of a silent financial coup And the people who have performed the coup are what we refer to as globalists. And America is, for all intent and purpose, an occupied country. Globalists have taken over the financial machinery of the United States of America. And this may sound confusing to some people because I think a lot of people believe that Donald Trump is not a globalist and disavows any of the globalist program or regime. And maybe we should just say for the record that what the globalist vision is of the world is a one world government with one world currency and one world religion. And the fact that this entity or this group of people exists, I believe, is beyond discussion at this point in time. And I'm just going to say that it's a given fact that there is indeed a group of people called the globalists. Trump even references them. And inasmuch as Trump disavows the globalist vision of the world, he gives orders to his lieutenants. He gives orders like have John Brennan's security clearance revoked, but it isn't revoked. He says release all the FISA related, the Russiagate FISA related information, and the information has not been released. So, unfortunately for Trump, and unfortunately for America, the machinery that surrounds the president is so heavily populated with people dedicated to the globalist cause that the president is having a very difficult time, let's just say, changing or revoking globalist measures that have been in place for a long time. So what I'm saying is the U.S. Treasury is captive, and there are evil forces. There are forces that are anti-humanity, that are controlling the monetary framework that is the U.S. dollar. And we know that back in 2006, the right to grant waivers to institutions to cheat on their financials and to keep two sets of books, this right, which rested with the executive and with the presidency from 1934 up until 2006, the right to grant this waiver existed solely with the President of the United States. But in 2006, under George W. Bush, that right was transferred from the executive to the intelligence community. At the time, Bush Jr. transferred that right to the intelligence czar. His name was John Negroponte, but that signified the shift of basically control of the financial apparatus from executive to the intelligence community. And it's the intelligence community that has done the dirty work of the globalists. It was the intelligence community that aided and abetted the Russia P-gate documentation against fallacious documentation against Trump. And basically what it means is the intelligence community has control of the financial apparatus, not the presidency, as most people would assume and think rightfully that where control should rest. So we've seen sea changes, very large sea changes, and how these things are ever going to get reversed, I don't know. But I would suspect that if Trump wanted to make meaningful change or reversal of these horrible instances, he could start with revoking the executive order that ceded the financial control to the intelligence community. That should be reversed or canceled.
Yes, I agree. And I do believe that we call it the swamp that's surrounding him, that's been around. But during his presidency, he has removed, or people have resigned in the FBI, Department of Justice, and a lot of people are leaving. I do believe that he's doing everything he possibly can to drain as many as these people as he possibly can. But again, over the many, many years, the swamp is wide, it is deep, and like you said, the intelligence agencies, the unelected individuals, have gained control of not just the financial, but have gained control of almost everything, and they're really calling the shots. And I think Trump now is coming up against these people, and this is why when Trump says, let's remove Brennan's security clearance, there are still certain individuals within these organizations that will not follow his orders. We've seen it before, and he's fighting against these people every single day. And I think eventually what's going to happen, I think he's waiting for the perfect time to release the FISA with Bill Barr, with Huber, with Durham now. And I believe that they're taking everything and they're putting it all together with all these investigations. And I think eventually, once the timing is absolutely right, everything will be released and it will be transparent. And I think he's waiting for that moment. And I think this has been planned for a very long time. I don't think this is just something that just happened yesterday. And I think eventually what he's going to do is he's going to go after the central bank system, the whole apparatus. And like you said, that executive order, I think a lot of this is going to be reversed going forward. And I think we're heading in that direction because, from day one, he struck down the TPP. He reworked NAFTA. NAFTA is a complete mess in Congress, and he knew he couldn't get anything done in Congress. So he had to rework the NAFTA agreement. And I think eventually what he's going to do, he's going to get rid of that completely. But he had to do that. And look what he's doing with China. Look what he's doing. Well, he forced Mexico into agreeing with a different deal with immigration. I think he's choosing his battles right now because there's just so much to do that you can't do everything all at once. And I think you have to remove blocks and remove barriers before you can take a step forward. And I think this is what he's been doing.
Dave, I think what you're saying, there's a growing body of evidence to suggest what you're saying is true. And this is evidenced by very, very key resignations and departures of people in the financial hierarchy. I know that in the last couple of weeks in particular, there have been key resignations in the money machine, or what I call the money machine. The key people at the Fed have either resigned or left under dubious circumstance. I just know, and I can't even give you the names, but I know that in very, very key positions, because people in the alternative community are talking about it. And, I've received probably 4 or 5 emails from fellow writers and researchers talking about and referencing. It's like the rats are leaving the sinking ship. It really has that appearance. And I apologize for not being able to rhyme off the names and the key departures, but there have been. And this may be and is highly supportive of the point of view that change is coming and that Trump may be having some very significant successes, even if they are not completely apparent to the general public at large as yet. But absolutely, I would agree with you from the standpoint that he's been unfortunately surrounded by creatures of the swamp. And a lot of people have referenced the fact that he has so many swamp creatures around him and in his cabinet. as being his lack of want to make change. And I don't necessarily view it that way, because I know that Trump has had extreme difficulty in getting anybody confirmed in key positions around him. And basically, he's been stuck with a bad hand because the embedded stay behind regulatory framework who either allow or disallow incoming lieutenants who surround the president have prevented him from bringing in like-minded individuals who would wholeheartedly support his agenda. So these are realities on the ground. And, when you're acting as president, you have to live with the reality of the situation that you're put in. But as for the deep state or the globalist entity, which is absolutely anti-Trump, their commitment to this one world government and this one world currency, in my view, remains unchecked. And it would seem that we are probably headed for some sort of a climatic event, I would think, in the very near future. I don't think we're going to make it, for instance, Dave, to the 2020 presidential elections without some major fireworks in the financial arena globally. I can just feel it. I can feel it, that it's coming.
When you say fireworks in the before 2020 election, do you mean like a recession or depression?
It could be that and more. I look at the recent dramatic rise in crypto as I refer to it or view it as a rise from the ashes, particularly in the Bitcoin world. Bitcoin got down to a low of about 3,000, and as recently as 2 weeks ago, I think it was up as high as 9,000, and that's a clear triple. In the meantime, gold's gone from maybe 1340 in December down as low as 1270-ish, and it's back up around 1330 today, which basically means it's unchanged from December. And it just seems to me that the dramatic rise, particularly in the cryptos, to me are foreshadowing that we are going to see some major fireworks here very soon.
So you're saying that they're using the cryptos to keep all eyes off of gold and silver. They're saying, "Oh, look at Bitcoin, look at the other altcoins, they're rising. So everyone look over here, not over there."
Listen, the globalists want the general public of the world to view crypto as the new gold. There is no doubt in my mind that this is an agenda that's being propagated and put forward because, as you said, they want all eyes off gold. And the only thing I will mention with regard to crypto and its viability as a global trade settlement entity, crypto, in my view, is dependent upon a free and functioning internet, and gold is not contingent upon anything, because with gold you have no third party counterparty risk. And with crypto, people who believe that the internet will always be free and functioning, before we started recording, I asked you if you believe the internet's free and functioning, because I know you've had issues with your content being demonetized, if not deplatformed. One can look at the rife censorship being practiced by Apple, Google, Facebook, Twitter, with conservative voices in the alternative press. and the amount of deplatforming and delisting of said voices has been spectacular in the last year. And when I look at the advancements being made on a daily, if not weekly basis in artificial intelligence, I really, and with the use of algorithms, and proliferation of algorithms in everything exploding, I wonder how long the internet is going to be free and functioning, and whether that poses a threat to adopters of crypto as the new gold. So it may look good on paper. It may seem like the great new thing. It may seem like the new gold, but it's digital, and it exists really only in virtual reality. And virtual realities can become virtual nightmares. And if you don't believe me, ask you, Dave, or ask Alex Jones how quickly your digital platform can be compromised and or memory hold.
True. And I was just thinking when you were mentioning gold and silver and the cryptos and where cryptos is rising right now, and gold and silver, they're pretty much steady where they've always been. What I was thinking was that the crypto market and the gold market, even though one is done digitally, the powers that be, they have the ability to control both by dumping either gold paper contracts or dumping a lot of Bitcoin and bringing the price down. Now with gold, they're keeping the price completely steady while they're allowing cryptos to move up. Now they could bring cryptos right back down to where it was before, but they aren't doing it. And when I think about it, we know that a lot of the central banks, they've been purchasing a lot of gold. We know that Russia, China, many other countries have been either purchasing or repatriating their gold. So to me, it seems like they are really trying to keep everyone's eyes away from what they're actually doing. And they're continually accumulating a lot of this precious metals, all these precious metals, and they don't want people to notice exactly what they're doing. And I think maybe this is one of the reasons why they're having everyone look over here and get excited about cryptocurrencies right now.
Oh, exactly, Dave. We know even by reports in the mainstream dinosaur press that the levels of buying on behalf of central banks around the world, which is purchasing of physical metal, is at all-time historic highs. So, that being said, one might want to scratch their head and wonder or ask why, if there's record buying of gold on the part of officialdom, why there hasn't been a more noticeable price increase. And the reason for that is that there's been an explosion in the open interest, showing that the increase in demand for physical metal has been met with an inexhaustible supply of paper contracts or promises of metal that doesn't exist. But the regulatory watchdogs who are supposed to limit the naked shorting of paper contracts of precious metal look the other way and are in breach of their fiduciary duties to limit the amount of naked shorting of metals. And the reason they look the other way and the reason that commodities law is not enforced is because the source of the selling of the paper contracts is none other than very likely the U.S. Treasury itself, acting in conjunction with other aligned central banks or central bank entities like the Bank for International Settlements. And this inexhaustible supply of paper contracts is used to keep the price, at least we call it the paper price of metals, in check, while a massive accumulation is occurring right under our noses of physical metal. by other, let's just say, non-aligned central banks.
Do you think that the globalists, that they're getting worried because we're seeing change around the world? I mean, if you look out at the UK, Nigel Farage with his Brexit party, they're moving up very, very quickly. Angela Merkel says she's not going to run again. Then we have Le Pen in France, who's going against Macron. And then we have Italy, we have Australia, where we're seeing a change of leadership. Italy saying, listen, we might be looking at our own currency. We might be stepping away from the euro. Are they getting worried that all these countries are starting to catch on and the people now are voting for completely different leaders than they had before? And and I'm not just talking about the Fed, I'm talking about the IMF, the main central banks, the elite, the establishment. You think they're getting very, very nervous right now? I mean, even Angela Merkel, she lumped the United States in with China and Russia. Are they getting nervous that there is change coming?
Dave, if they aren't, they should be. But I do believe they are indeed, because what I'm seeing is a growing isolationism of the globalist preferred reserve currency, call it the US dollar. Germany, in my view, is flipping east. And this is evidenced by such actions as this is not something that's begun in the last year. This is an ongoing process that's taken a number of years to evolve and develop. But as I was about to say, Germany flipping east is evidenced by the Environmental Protection Agency coming down hard a few years ago on Volkswagen over their diesel emissions in their vehicles. And the formal charges of the EPA against Volkswagen only occurred 1 week after Volkswagen opened a new engine plant in Russia in 2015. There are other manifestations of this in the commercial world between German and companies. I mean, look at the state of Deutsche Bank currently, and much of Deutsche Bank's woes, I would suggest to you, are connected to their engaged or involvement in the derivatives market, which was basically frowned upon by German regulator BaFin a number of years ago when they went in and did an audit of Deutsche Bank's books and found that Deutsche Bank was behaving in a fashion that would be that it would have appeared to the German regulator that Deutsche Bank was acting much more like an American commercial bank, supporting the dollar, than acting like a German bank. And basically, what happened was the German regulator BaFin read the riot act to Deutsche Bank, and Deutsche Bank has had their let's just say they've had their sales trimmed somewhat, and they've been forced to exit like the metals markets, and they've been forced to reduce their derivatives book. And these are things that the German regulator just couldn't tolerate, that a German financial institution would be acting in the interests of another country. And that's exactly what Deutsche Bank was doing by participating to the extent they were in the dollar derivatives complex and in the rigging of strategic markets like metals and LIBOR. So we've also seen Italy flipping east in that their relationship with China and their One Belt, One Road initiative. They've been certainly cozying up to the east. We've seen examples of India relations with America becoming somewhat inflamed because much of the oil that India imports comes from Iran, and America's put an ixnay on that. And so what I see is a collective of countries, and what I see coming, and what I can foresee coming, is a group of countries getting together. Non-traditional allegiances are being formed, in my view, because we're seeing bilateral and multilateral meetings occurring between leadership of Western countries and China and Russia and India and Japan, where the United States is not even invited to the meetings. And these type of meetings have been increasingly happening over the last 2-3 years. And what I can see coming is a day when perhaps a group of countries such as Germany, Italy, India, China, Russia, and maybe Japan, and maybe even France, thrown in for good measure, make a collective communique to the rest of the world that due to fraudulent stewardship of the world's reserve currency, these group of countries are going to band together and no longer accept dollars in trade or in trade settlement. I can see it coming. I can smell it coming. And I do believe that America is probably quite aware that there's fertile ground for this type of movement today, which is why, to me, America is beginning to look like it's engaged in panic decisions, panic actions. I mean, the high-handedness of America dictating to countries who they can trade with and imposing tariffs. It seems almost willy-nilly. This is something that is, to me, it stands out, and it signals to me that massive change is coming, and further isolation and rejection of dollars in international trade. You see, it's hard for countries to accept the dollar as settlement in international trade when the U.S. government has been excused from accounting. People do not want to do business with entities that don't have accounting. It doesn't work. The dog doesn't hunt.
I agree. Don't you think that the dollar is really a Federal Reserve note that they're dealing in? It's not really the U.S. dollar itself. But wouldn't this be a good thing if the world rejects the Federal Reserve note? Because wouldn't that destroy the central bank system?
Dave, let's call it what it really is. It's not the U.S. dollar at all. This sham of what's occurred in America is not at the handiwork of Americans. I know too many Americans who are good friends of mine, who are very decent people, and they abhor what's occurred in their own country. So let's call it what it really is, Dave. It's not the U.S. dollar anymore. It's the globalist dollar. And it's globalist trade settlement that they're defending. And it's globalist trade settlement in what we call U.S. dollars for now, that the populist movement is rejecting. Because the populist movement, or the people that represent sanity and rationality around the world, they're becoming very aware that the guys in charge of and who have had stewardship of the globalist dollar, well, they've created probably 21 trillion or up to 50 trillion additional dollars that they have in a rainy day fund to inflict their will on humanity at any time they want to. And the rest of the world is sick and tired of it. And a lot of people around the world figure they might as well die on their feet than die on their knees as slaves to this globalist, disgusting insult to humanity, which is what it is. And this globalist dollar has become the biggest threat to humanity that humanity has ever witnessed. And this is not Americans. This is the globalist entity, which is a mix of all different races, nationalities. It's an exclusive club, Dave, and you and I aren't in it.
I agree. Do you think the day that the globalist dollar, do you think the day is coming where countries are going to completely reject it and there will be no more Federal Reserve note?
I think the rejection is coming because we're seeing signs of the rejection now. But I think what we're going to see is a galvanization and very likely a banding together of unlikely entities making a joint communique and announcing to the rest of the world they've had it. That's what I see coming. And frankly, the actions that the globalists are taking, to me, are telegraphing that they're very aware it's coming too. And absolutely, I see it coming.
Rob, thank you very much for being on the X22 Report Spotlight. Once again, how can people see your work?
You can catch me on the web at kirbyanalytics.com. And it's been a pleasure talking to you, Dave.
Pleasure speaking with you, Rob. Thank you very much.